How many Palestinians, including Hamas terrorists, have you so far killed?
We know that we've killed thousands of terrorists. We know.
Well, hang on. Let me ask you about that. So, the Hamas-run health authority says it's over 14,000 people have now been killed. Of that, I mean, do you accept those numbers? Because they have been endorsed by other bodies, but do you accept that those numbers are fairly accurate? Historically, they have been.
Hamas is the organization, the army of terror that on October 7th burned, beheaded, abducted people, and then lied about it to the entire international media.
I understand that.
So it is the opposite of a credible source. And
I understand that, but do you accept, given that previous figures that they have given during the many years of this conflict about casualties have turned out to be pretty accurate, do you accept this is likely to be the range of people who've been killed?
First of all, they haven't been proven accurate because historically Hamas never admits in the course of a war that its own terrorists are killed, and that only comes to light afterwards. I'll say what we know about the numbers, and we don't have exact numbers because, Piers, I can't tell you how many Israelis were murdered in the October 7th massacre because we still have dozens of body parts, dozens of body bags of unidentifiable human remains. So the idea that I can give you an exact number is not realistic, but here's what I can tell you. One, we know we've killed thousands of terrorists because our campaign has been target the monsters who perpetrated the October 7th massacre.
How do you know they're terrorists?
Two, we know. How do we know they're terrorists?
How do you tell a Hamas terrorist from a Palestinian civilian who's not part of Hamas?
Hamas is making it very difficult to do that because we know that it's
So how do you know you've killed thousands of them?
Because we know who we are targeting. We are targeting on the basis of precise intelligence. This isn't an indiscriminate bombardment as many would like to paint it. Hamas knows that we do not target civilians. It seems to know that better than some in the West. That's why, for example, we recently declassified an intercepted phone call of Islamic Jihad terrorists talking about transporting an anti-tank missile in a baby's pram because they know perfectly well that Israel is trying to target the terrorists and not the civilians.
Okay, but here's my problem with this, is that by your own admission, you don't know how many Hamas terrorists, and I categorize people who belong to the Hamas organization as terrorists, just for clarity. But you don't actually know, do you, how many of them you've killed? And by your own admission, just a few moments ago, you said that they make it incredibly difficult for you to work out who is a Hamas terrorist and who is a civilian. And that seems to me part of the problem that you have with the optics of this to the wider world, is that they're seeing horrible imagery all day long. I mean, it's just the worst thing I've ever seen all over social media.
The worst thing we've ever seen were the atrocities that Hamas perpetrated on October 7th. I'm just saying,
I've not seen, thankfully, I've not seen what many journalists have seen, which is the 45-minute film of that. And I understand it's absolutely horrific. And I'm not making any comparison. I would not say anything is worse than that. So for the record, but the horrible imagery all day long, it is suggesting to people that there are thousands and thousands of women and a lot of children, maybe as many as 5,000 to 6,000 children now, have been killed by these airstrikes and now the ground attack. And I think the problem that you have, and I say this respectfully, the problem you have is that you don't actually know how many Hamas terrorists you're killing. I mean, if you're honest, you don't, do you?
Piers, the sad fact is, everyone who has been killed in the Gaza Strip in the last month and a half would still be alive if Hamas had not launched this war with the October 7th massacre and then fought out of densely populated civilian areas that it has done its darndest to prevent people from evacuating in order to get to safety while we try to get them to safety. But I want to say something about the civilian casualties because I think this is important. We know that we've killed thousands of terrorists. We know that Hamas is inflating the numbers.
You don't actually know that.
We believe...
But that's my problem with this. You say you have, but when I push you for the details, you don't have them. And that
Piers,
for me,
I still
that's
can't
the
tell
problem
you exactly how many Israelis were murdered in the October 7th massacre.
I understand that.
Because we're still
and that's
counting
horrific.
Bodies.
No, but I agree with you. That is utterly horrific that you still can't determine how many people were killed that day because of the horrors that were perpetrated. You and I are in complete agreement. But nor do you know how many of these Hamas terrorists you're killing. It could be that vast numbers of them, and we think there are around 35,000 perhaps in total, that vast numbers of them either disappeared into the tunnels and have been safely there ever since, or simply went south with the million or more Palestinian supposed civilians that went down there. Maybe a lot of them infiltrated that group and are down in the south. You don't actually know, do you, for sure?